Good afternoon, everyone. This is Metin Çorabatır. Welcome to İGAMTV's broadcast from Ankara, Turkey. But we have other participants from different places. I would like to open the session, what we called Civil Society Refugee Response in Turkey amid the COVID-19. This is a very important point, very important issue, although we are hearing very happy news about the vaccines from different parts of the world, but still we are under the, as a human community and refugees, under the threat of this virus. So refugees particularly impacted in Turkey. Turkey, as you all know, hosts 4 million people. Let me briefly mention about our organization, which is affiliated with İGAMTV. İGAM, the Research Center on Asylum and Migration, was established in 2013 and particularly focusing on refugee issues. It aims to promote the rights of refugees everywhere. So with the Syrian crisis, we face a huge challenge of refugees, 4 million refugees in Turkey currently. Plus this year, unfortunately, we faced another big crisis upon the huge refugee crisis. And the most vulnerable people were refugees. Especially in the area of health, in the area of livelihood and all sectors. We, together with several other Turkish NGOs, civil society organizations, with the help of and in cooperation with UN agencies and with the funds, generous funds of EU, and also in good cooperation with Turkish government, we are trying to cope with this challenge. Let me stop here. Welcome. I hope this will be very fruitful and insightful discussion. We have very great contributors. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Metin Bey. It is actually our pleasure to organize this timely webinar together. I would just like to say a few words about the EU-Turkey Forum for those of you who don't know us. The EU-Turkey Forum was founded in March 2010 by members from the largest political groups in the European Parliament. And since then, it has been successfully relaunched every parliamentary term. The aim of the forum is to advance a well-informed debate on issues related to EU-Turkey relations, while also serving as a bridge between Turkey and the EU. In the past 10 years, we have hosted a large number of high-level meetings with European and Turkish officials, decision makers, experts, civil society, Mr. Chris Peters, who's the chair of Piri Urma Spayet, and Tineke Strik, whom we have the pleasure to have among us today. Particularly at times like this, we hope to give a new impetus to EU-Turkey relations by rebuilding trust and cooperation at all possible levels. And our unique voice stems from our cross-party and non-partisan nature, as well as our willingness to engage with all stakeholders, building bridges of understanding. With today's webinar, we want to highlight the role of civil society in supporting refugees in Turkey, particularly during the pandemic, a role that is often not well acknowledged. Together with our co-organizing partners, we have put together a unique panel bringing together NGO leaders, EU policymakers, and academics to discuss how can we work together to support their efforts. On behalf of the forum, I would like to thank the co-organizing partners for making this webinar happen, as well as the speakers for having accepted our invitation. We have the pleasure, before starting the panel, to have MEP Tineke Strik, who will honor us with a keynote speech. Mrs. Strik is a member of the European Parliament for the Dutch Greens since July 2009. But previously, she has been working already on migration and asylum policies, and she is currently the migration coordinator for the Greens IFA group in the European Parliament. So Mrs. Strick, the floor is yours, and thank you once again. You're muted.
Sorry. Now I'm unmuted. Thanks a lot for organizing this webinar. It could not be more timely, I think, that we exchange again on the need to strengthen the integration of Syrian refugees in Turkey. It's almost 10 years ago that the war started in Syria. And I remember the last 12 years, I was member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, that in springtime 2011, we immediately went to the southeast of Turkey with the delegations where we visited the refugees and the camps. And they were very quickly built, so that was already very impressive. And what always reminded me that when I think about the crisis now is that every refugee said, we don't want to travel further. We want to return as quick as possible. They were very in close contact with their families who were still in Syria, and they just wanted to support their country and go back as soon as possible. And now it's so cynical and sad if you think about that, almost 10 years later, that we see 605 million internally displaced, 13 million persons in need in Syria, and 500 million refugees outside of Syria. And Turkey is definitely hosting the most of them with 3.5 million. And the perspective of return has only decreased in the course of the years. And if you look now to the country, even if there are less battles going on, the country is completely destroyed. And if there is a certain moment that we can start from scratch rebuilding the country, the internally displaced, of course, need to be prioritized. So we can really doubt or question, is there still a perspective of the Syrian refugees currently in Turkey to really return to their homes? And that's important to think about what their needs are. I mean, at a certain moment, it's very important for refugees that they can start rebuilding their future. And so maybe we cannot talk about hosting Syrians anymore, refugees, but it's about supporting them in building their new future. In the meantime, many children have been born, people got citizenship. I mean, their life is in Turkey. And that requires a lot more than, being treated as a guest, of course. And I think that already a lot of lessons have been drawn during the course of the years, where in the beginning we saw that children did not have access to school. And I think that access to education has significantly improved. Access to the labor market has slightly improved. But now we see indeed, as already said by Mr. Koabatir, that we face a new crisis. And of course, the economic recession was already going on before the pandemic, but this pandemic really hits the refugees hard, especially because most of them are depending on the informal economy, and they are the first one to lose their jobs. I think also, therefore, the poverty level is deeply concerning. And if you talk about access to the labor market, I mean, we still have approximately 100,000 working permits, which is, of course, very little if you compare it to the whole society of Syrian refugees who are depending on the labor market. So a lot of people, vulnerable to exploitation or lack of income. So I think that if we want to work on sustainable integration, we also need to make sure that their legal position improves, that there is a legal access to the labor market for all of them, to housing, and also to citizenship. I think to really have an equal treatment and a possibility to participate effectively. So there's still a lot that can be done. And of course, here the EU plays a big role. I mean, there is this funding being agreed upon in the EU-Turkey statement of 2016. And to be honest, I was at that moment rapporteur on the EU-Turkey statement for the Council of Europe. And I was pretty critical on that statement. I mean, I was very much in favor, and not only me, but the Parliamentary Assembly with me, in favor of the funding and the support of Turkey because they are the largest hosting country worldwide of refugees. But that in exchange that they need to strengthen their border controls and take back all Syrians that depart there and come into the EU. I think that's both, you know, yeah, you can create too much pressure in a country. If you have too many refugees, this is always difficult for societies to cope with. And that also makes the refugees themselves very vulnerable. I believe very much in a more equal responsibility sharing at the global level. Therefore, so many states supported the Global Compact on the refugees 2 years ago. And I think the EU should also act in this spirit. But now we have this EU-Turkey statement, of course, and now we are about to decide on a renewal or prolong this statement. I think that all parties want to renew it, so I guess that this will take place. And I think that we really should make sure as soon as possible that the funding will be prolonged anyhow. And because we need to be predictable, I think that's very important for the support of the refugees and the organizations that work with it, that there should not be any insecurity on the near future. And I think that we should also reconsider, while funding, do we need to support more? What can we do more? More in terms of money, but also more in other ways. For instance, if I think we should critically look at to who do we give the funding. I think what we see in practice, many different actors play their own role in supporting refugees. And I think every actor has its added value. We need local NGOs because they have local knowledge, local networks. We need municipalities to give effective access to the services. And we need international organizations who can serve as an umbrella and who have access to national authorities and have the overview of what is happening. So I think we all need to have this. And I think that the EU should be very careful to make sure that there's no fragmentation, but there's cooperation and coordination, but not at the cost of some actors. So I think we need to make sure that there's no monopolization for certain organizations, but that everyone acts in their own role, having their own added value. And I think that the EU may support that in the way that it implements the funding. I also think, although it's difficult because we already ask a lot from Turkey, but that we should see in the discussions with the Turkish authorities, if we can also get safeguards on strengthening the legal position of the refugees so that they can really build further with their new lives, including their children, that they are equally treated, that there's no discrimination against, and that they have their full possibilities to develop their lives. And also, I think regarding the human rights, I visited once some removal centers, and I know that there's still some problems for instance, UNHCR to get access to removal centers, that there's still some signals that people who are returning to North Syria are not always returning on a voluntary basis, despite some declarations. I think these types of human rights, that we need to be sure that the non-refoulement principle is not being violated, that the EU should take a proactive role in ensuring this, while at the same time making sure that it's fully supporting the refugees in Turkey. And finally, of course, we cannot source our responsibility out with only funding. We cannot do that. I mean, that would go against the global responsibility that the EU should also take part in, and actually should serve as an example, I would think. So we need to resettle many more refugees. And I think in close cooperation with UNHCR, because they have a long waiting list, they know who's so vulnerable that they need a resettlement. And we need to do that much more now and without any other conditions towards Turkey, because it's about helping their refugees and taking responsibility. Actually, we see too much during the last decades that especially the wealthy countries and continents, if you look at the US, Australia and Europe, we are more and more outsourcing at the cost of the regions, nearby conflict regions. And this is the wrong signal. So here with this is cooperation with Turkey, we can start reversing this trend and make sure that commonly we make this effort to give all refugees the future that they deserve. Thanks a lot. And I wish you a very fruitful webinar and exchange of calls, hopefully with common solutions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Strike, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking time, and thank you very much for your contribution, your intervention. I think it was very valuable that you mentioned the issue that giving the right signals and not outsourcing. I think that's the message that we take as well. Thank you. Welcome everyone. I would like to welcome you all again once more. My name is Başak Kade. I'm an associate professor in the Department of International Relations in Middle East Technical University. I'm also the chair of European Studies program here in METU. And I'm also the coordinator of the METUMIR migration program. What do we do here today is that we combine the powers of 4 co-hosts. We will be today hosting this panel together with İGAM and the EU-Turkey Forum, METUMIR and HasNa. I will just, before giving floor to the speakers, I would like to make a little short introduction of which organizations are here today with us today. METUMIR was able to explain İGAM's role and İGAM in a brief introduction, and Laura explained the EU-Turkey Forum. There are also 2 other co-hosts of this event, one of them being METUMIR. METUMIR is an interdisciplinary research platform for migration studies at METU. It's led by students, basically, and they bring together different research interests and try to make as lively as possible the migration research at METU and beyond. And today we also have HasNa with us, who's co-host, Washington, D.C. So this is a unique forum that on the Human Rights Day, today is the Human Rights Day, and we are celebrating the 72nd anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And at the same time, we're having a council meeting today, which is also very critical for Turkey. So we're bringing this transatlantic link, Turkey, Brussels, and Washington, D.C. today. It's a unique opportunity. I would like to, before giving the floor, I would like to first talk a little bit about HasNa today, which is basically the reason we are together here. Because in the middle of pandemic, this Washington, D.C. based organization took the lead to write a report. And HasNa has the mission of facilitating cross-cultural understanding between communities that are divided along ethnic, religious, racial, gender, and national lines, and tries to reduce the barriers for positive peace, particularly in Turkey and in the Eastern Mediterranean region. And this year, HasNa launched the Turkey Refugee Response Initiative with the aim of supporting Turkish civil society refugee response efforts and conducting research for integrated learning and advocacy. And we're very pleased to have Rukmina Banerjee today. Rukmina is the president of HasNa and right now in Washington, D.C. So thank you so much, Rukmina, coming. It's quite early for Washington, D.C. And she's the president, and she's going to be talking a little bit about the project, the report today. Floor is yours, Rukmini.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. It's an honor to be a part of this prestigious panel, and I want to thank İGAM, METUMIR, and the EU-Turkey Forum for giving HasNa the opportunity to co-host this event and also present our research on CSO refugee response in Turkey during COVID-19. I will be providing a brief overview of the report that we published earlier this summer as part of the first phase of HasNa's Turkey Refugee Response Initiative, which will hopefully create an effective entry point into the rest of today's panel discussion. So since the beginning of the Syrian civil war, the Turkish government has adopted an open door policy to Syrian refugees. But with the protracted nature of the conflict, we find its resources being stretched thin. And under such circumstances, the role of civil society assumes greater importance. So we have seen an evolution in the role of Turkish civil society organizations in assisting refugees. While their initial objective in the early years of the conflict and refugee crisis was to meet the immediate humanitarian needs of the refugee community, over the years, there was a gradual shift to assume greater responsibility in promoting long-term social cohesion and integration efforts between refugees and Turkish host communities. The coronavirus pandemic has, however, presented a rupture in this process, compelling CSOs to once again prioritize the emergency needs of refugees who continue to face severe unemployment and difficulties in accessing resources. So between May and June of this year, we conducted a series of interviews with around 30 representatives from NGOs, municipalities, and academics, including Başak Hoca, working either directly or indirectly with refugee response efforts in Turkey. The main objective of our research was to explore the role of Turkey CSOs in serving refugee communities before and during the pandemic, while drawing lessons for future programming in the region. Our interviews revolved around a set of 5 main questions designed to provide insights into CSOs' operations amid the pandemic, their need for and access to appropriate capacity building programs, their roles in facilitating refugees' access to humanitarian aid, employment, and basic services, and their efforts to ensure long-term social cohesion before, during, and after the pandemic. We also tried to ensure a diverse and inclusive geographic representation, approaching CSOs from all over Turkey. So as mentioned earlier, the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic marked a definitive turning point in Turkey's refugee response efforts. During the lockdown, most CSOs were forced to close their offices, and case management teams were required to suspend their activities on the ground. So many organizations such as Concern Worldwide and Afak Academy set up hotlines for refugees, offering psychosocial support and other social protection services. Some CSOs offered additional support services, including responding to complaints about domestic and gender-based violence, and we saw a marked increase in domestic violence globally during this lockdown, providing essential transportation and offering translation and interpretation services for beneficiaries facing language and other logistical barriers at hospitals. We also learned about the VEFA social support groups comprising public employees and CSO representatives established by the government of Turkey to deliver hygiene kits, food, and cash assistance to the most vulnerable and at-risk communities. This was in addition to the Emergency Social Safety Net program funded by the EU, which has provided monthly cash assistance to over 1.7 million of the neediest refugees since 2016. As humanitarian assistance became the highest priority during the pandemic, there was a natural movement away from long-term socioeconomic social cohesion programs and vocational trainings that facilitate refugees' access to the labor market. So a June 2020 survey conducted by ASAM, or the Association for Solidarity with Asylum Seekers and Migrants, found that among the 184 survey participants who made their living through assistance and daily wage work, only 18% were unemployed before the pandemic outbreak. But after March 2020, this figure increased to a staggering 88%. Since most refugees are informally employed, they were not eligible for unemployment benefits or other government safety net programs. We spoke to the grant manager from Hayata Destek Derneği, or Support to Life, and a CSO based in Istanbul, who pointed out that out of the 3.6 million Syrian refugees living in Turkey, only about 31,000 have work permits, and following the lockdown, These permits were even more difficult to obtain, with offices being closed and fewer public employees available. The language barrier also continued to be a significant obstacle, especially in regions that were far from the Turkish-Syrian border. One of the interviewees from the Istanbul-based Refugees Association, or Mülteciler Derneği, noted that even under normal circumstances, social cohesion activities were difficult to arrange and were now even lower on the priority list due to the rising humanitarian needs of the refugee community. However, many organizations continued their social cohesion programming even during the pandemic. For example, our co-host, İGAM, moved to the digital sphere, launching awareness campaigns on social media in English, Turkish, and Arabic, where they provided information on preventing the spread of the virus and useful resources that could help refugees meet their urgent needs. In fact, our panel today is also being hosted on İGAMTV, which is part of their digital activity during the pandemic. Many of the CSOs that we interviewed expressed concern about the way the pandemic would affect social cohesion, particularly amid national economic downturn and severe unemployment. A 2017 survey found that nearly 71% of Turkish respondents believed that Syrians were taking jobs from Turkish citizens. And as both Turkish and Syrians lost their jobs at an alarming rate during the pandemic, deeper divisions could be on the horizon. In this respect, our research revealed that since economic stability contributes to positive peace, CSOs and NGOs would do well to adopt a blended approach to vocational training so as to develop relevant skill sets among refugee and host communities while also bringing them together to build mutual trust and understanding. My colleague Nuha Boa from the Embark project will be talking about this probably in more detail. So the idea of achieving social cohesion through access to means of livelihoods resonates closely with HasNa's own mission and programming model of facilitating cross-cultural understanding through professional development. Ultimately, CSOs and local governments need to modify their interventions to move away from a burden approach to an opportunity approach. CSOs should work towards upholding the untapped potential of the refugee community and emphasize the different ways in which they can contribute to the economy. This can be accomplished by strengthening the link between humanitarian assistance and long-term development goals, fostering resilience and self-reliance, and creating platforms for coordination between government representatives, INGOs, and CSOs rooted in the local communities to facilitate exchange of information and best practices. I would just like to close by drawing attention to the next phase of HasNa's Turkey Refugee Response Initiative, wherein we have partnered with the Mardin Community Participation and Development Association to deliver COVID hygiene kits and protective equipment to both refugees and host communities in the Mardin province. We are also simultaneously conducting hygiene, nutrition, and child's rights training sessions in the communities so that they are better equipped to survive the harsh winter months of the pandemic. So if you wish to learn more about our project, please feel free to visit our website, hasna.org. And I think I will end here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rukmini. It was quite a comprehensive summary of all the report. And as Rukmini has already said, if you would like to learn more details about it, you can click on their website and find the report there. And there's more details about the whole research. So I would recommend that you will check on it. Our next speaker is from the European Union delegation of Turkey, Mr. Liborhat. And Mr. Liborhat has taken up this post of the head of section for the Facility for Refugees in Turkey in the cooperation section of the EU delegation in Ankara as of September 2019. Libor is a multilingual lawyer trained in several jurisdictions with a strong international focus and over 18 years of experience working with the high-level governmental, intergovernmental, and non-governmental structures. He also has previously managed diverse teams in complex projects with multiple stakeholders and large budgets with different kind of environments and challenging environments like Western Balkans with IPA, and Middle East, the security sector reform. And he also worked for the European Agency for Management of Large-Scale IT Systems for the Schengen area, and also with NATO previously. So Libor, thank you so much for taking time, especially in this very busy day with the European Council meeting. And we're very happy that you are here with us to share your opinion, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this fantastic introduction. Maybe I should just add that I am not looking for another job. As you correctly said, I have been in Ankara since September last year, and with a team of 18, we have been managing a facility for refugees in Turkey. I will explain in my presentation what it is and how we do it. Hopefully, will be of interest for your audience. So I would like to ask you to put up my presentation on the screen. Okay, I hope it works. So the facility for refugees is in fact a mechanism that has been put in place in the context of the EU-Turkey statement that has already been mentioned here of 2016. And it's a mechanism that brings together the totality of 6 billion euro that are managed by the EU for the support of the immense efforts of Turkey to host the Syrian refugees on the Turkish territory. There's a little glitch here. So it's a joint coordination mechanism, to be exact, that brings together financial resources from different funding sources, including from the EU budget and directly from the EU member states. The facility, the 6 billion altogether, break down into 2 tranches of 3 billion each, and they have slightly different focus and slightly different priorities. I will explain in a little while. Oops, what happened? Go forward. There we are. So this is an overview of who we work with. So the types of our implementing partners, you will see this relates to the first tranche of the facility. So when we started, you will see that half of the means available in the facility have been implemented with UN agencies. And the other half, we have been working with Turkish institutions, with international financial institutions, and to a lesser extent with NGOs. In terms of geographic distribution, you will not be surprised to find that the distribution of our actions more or less corresponds to the numbers of refugees as they are present in the different Turkish provinces. How did we formulate what we are doing under the facility? Well, if we want to do the right thing, we have to first have a look at what we are trying to achieve and who are our customers, so to say. So we have conducted a needs analysis, needs assessments, the latest one in 2018, when in preparation of the second tranche of the facility, and some interesting information that describes, in fact, the community of the target beneficiaries can be of interest for the audience here. So, for example, and once again, I repeated that this data is from the last needs assessment that was conducted in 2018. So it's a little bit old, and we would have to, of course, update this. But right now we are at the stage of already conducting what we call a midterm evaluation of what the facility has been delivering. Hopefully, it will confirm that the facility, the actions funded from the facility, have had indeed a positive impact on the beneficiaries. So, for example, here you will see that an average household of the refugee population is relatively big, is bigger than an average household of the local of the host society. In terms of gender distribution, is more or less equal, but when we have a look at educational levels, you will see that large percentages are relatively less educated. When we look at the knowledge of the Turkish language, which is, as you can imagine, one of the major preconditions of access to employment. But once again, I need to refer to the fact that this data is from 2018. So since then, I would hope that some of these people that declared that have zero knowledge of Turkish by now have some knowledge of Turkish. So hopefully we are improving on this front. But you see that back in 2018, the data was dramatic. Half of them could not speak Turkish, which is of course a factor that is not helping if you are looking for a job on the labor market. When we look at the social stratification of the group of refugees, we will see that many of them are not working at all or from the working class, so relatively, let's say, lower social classes. And in terms of health stratification, on the right-hand side, you can see some of the main issues, but you will also see that overall, most respondents did not complain about their health situation, or that they considered, in other words, their health situation as good or very good. At the same time, however, they have been taking the advantage of the fact that in Turkey they benefit from free access to healthcare. Is also one of our priority areas under the facility, and they have been in large numbers seeking health consultations and health services. Now, what are the priority areas in which we work under the facility? As I said, they vary slightly between the two tranches. So in the beginning, when people were coming, let's say, fresh from across the border to Turkey, the basic their basic needs and protection were the areas of focus under our action. As they have been living in Turkey for, on average now, around 8 years, we are moving further to other areas of assistance, including socio-economic support, which basically means support of employment and other economic opportunities for these people. Education and health remain important priorities because they are preconditions of a certain rate of success in the competition on the labor market in Turkey, and capacity to work, obviously. And the last area is infrastructure, which is again obviously concentrated in the provinces with where the number of population has increased as a result of the influx of the Syrian population. So here you will see the priority areas according to money distribution. So no surprise, you have seen that we have large numbers of very young people. So many of them are of school age. So 38% of the assistance goes into the area of education to enable them to have a fair start and success in their professional career and in life in general. An important allocation, around 20%, goes to the area of health, and another important share goes into livelihoods. We could say also is the socio-economic support together with support of municipal infrastructure. Here, let's take the priority areas one by one. So under the first tranche of the facility, our assistance had a clear humanitarian character with a focus on distribution of basic support and basic services. You see some quite impressive figures of how many people benefited from the EU-funded assistance. In the area of protection, in particular, we've been working with DGMM, is responsible for migration management, because it has already been said in the introduction, registration, the legal status, legal positioning of every person is detrimental for their overall chances to succeed in the different areas of their life in Turkey. And we have been working with the Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Services for the provision of protection services through social service centers. So these centers include a large range of different services that are tailored to the needs of the target population. Here you see some examples. I will run quickly through the presentation because I have many slides prepared, but what will be more interesting is maybe to the discussion that will follow up and questions from the audience. So here again, you will see just an illustrative picture, I think speaks for 1,000 words of ladies at work that are improving their skills in view of hopefully employment in the future. Here you will see some youngsters with happy smiles attending tuition at school. And so these images are very, very telling. In the area of basic needs, there are the Emergency Social Safety Net is a program that is well known, I think, to everyone that qualifies for the support. Is in fact a program of direct cash transfers that have been made through a particular debit card, and almost 2 million Syrian refugees have benefited from these transfers. I will show you in a minute. This little girl is holding a card, Kızılay card, that is used for the distribution of this direct financial support.
Mr. Hirad, can we wrap up? So maybe we can discuss in the discussion section as well for some of the issues.
Okay, so I will just mention the remaining areas of our action. Is socio-economic support, support of employment and entrepreneurship. I will just go quickly through the pictures so that you have an idea of what we are supporting. Education is one of our flagships. I have prepared some numbers for you to understand the structure of the population and what are the challenges in the area of education, but I can skip that too. Some examples of the infrastructural projects that we have funded in the municipalities with large numbers of refugees. Here's some additional pictures. Quite detailed description of the needs in the area of health, where we will also continue to work under the second tranche. Here is one of the many doctors that we have been employing under the programs funded from the facility to deliver health services through Arabic to the refugees in migrant health centers. 178 of them have been established also from the funds of the EU. This is an example of what it looks like, here with some attendance. Municipal infrastructure is a bit technical. I think engineers would appreciate some detail of these projects, which have a very positive environmental impacts on the whole community. So not only the refugees that live in the municipalities concerned, but also the host communities, because obviously environmental concerns in the areas of proper disposal of waste of all sorts and provision of potable water are issues that are important for everyone. I have also prepared some points about the details of the humanitarian action delivered by DG ECO that is working closely with us and that have been in charge of the humanitarian side of the actions under the facility. But okay, I will go through it quickly. And some specific opportunities for NGOs, including local NGOs in Turkey. I can mention detail, but I can also quickly go through it. Maybe some of you have heard of a program called LIFT that is being implemented jointly or is funded jointly by the EU and GIZ. but I can go quickly through it. It's quite a comprehensive program with many beneficial effects. You can find the details about the support available to civil society organizations on our website. There is a direct link on this slide. So funding civil society -60. And we also have some more general support for civil society organizations that is funded from other financial sources, including Instrument for Pre-Accession Assistance or European Instrument for Democracy and Human Rights. There are also opportunities to participate in tailored training for civil society organizations and to use services of a resource center for civil society organizations that can help with your missions. Okay, that's all from me. I hope it was succinct. I have wrapped up, as you said.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Boer, for this very comprehensive presentation as well, that gives us a very big picture of what has been done by the EU. I think that's one thing that we sometimes lack, to know the details and how comprehensive it is, how this financial resources were linked with various types of activities, which is not only touching upon the lives of the refugees, but also the host communities as well. I think this is something maybe that is missing in terms of the PR from the European Union side, to tell that this is not only for the refugees, but also for the host communities, especially with the infrastructure projects that are done by the municipalities, because then it impacts both communities. And I think it's very important. And I think we will go back to it again during the question and answer session. And without any further ado, because we are very short in terms of our timing, I would like to move to our next speaker, which is also another distinguished speaker from Oxfam, Mrs. Meryem Aslan. Meryem Hanım has 30 years of experience working in Europe, US, Africa, Central and South Asia, and Middle East, with civil society organizations and United Nations. She has a very specific focus on access to economic and social rights, women's rights, migration, and civil society. Currently, she's working as a senior expert with various organizations, including Oxfam. And Oxfam is a global movement of people who are fighting inequality to end poverty and injustice in different ways. And those three ways are mainly campaigning, development, and emergency. And across regions from the local to global, they work with people to bring change that can last. And in terms of Turkey-specific work that Oxfam is doing, they also deal with the crisis in Syria, empowering refugees from Syria and host governments to face long-term crisis, violence against migrants, NGO workers, and forced Greece-Turkey returns, EU-Turkey deal, gender equality are some specific issues of Oxfam which are involving in Turkey. And now we have Meryem Hanım, who's also I worked with for many, many years with the Turkish Refugee Council as well, that I should not also forget to mention. And Meryem Hanım has a very long history working with refugees, human rights, and floor is yours, Meryem Hanım. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, how long do I have, Başak Hoca?
7 minutes. And I'm mean, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I would like to thank everyone for inviting me to this panel and former panelists for the excellent presentations. But I also want to congratulate everyone's International Human Rights Day. I know that we are gonna talk, I am gonna talk about civil society, but what I would like to do before I start my talk is to recognize all frontline workers across the world in this pandemic. And that includes health and care workers, and especially women whose care work across the world has increased 89%. Sanitation workers, cleaners, those people growing, producing, distributing food, and other essential. I don't know where would we have been if it wasn't for them. And I really want to acknowledge them before I start my talk. I know we all work and respond to this pandemic, but they are very valuable for us all. So we are in a situation of pandemic, and I think I am not gonna go into EU funding and other emergencies that happened till now, because we are in a situation where this pandemic has caused enormous social, economic, and health crisis in Turkey, but globally as well. And we are living in a new normal, and we are all trying to adapt to this new normal as Turkey, but as the world as well, and as the EU and all institutions, as civil society as well. So like other sectors, from economy to political bodies even, civil society has also been impacted with this crisis and really trying to adapt to this new crisis. And in Turkey, national and refugee-led organizations, women's organizations, grassroots organizations, and spontaneous civic initiatives operating at national, international, and local levels stepped in to respond to this crisis, as we saw across the world. We saw it in the United States, we saw it in Europe, we saw it in Asia, Africa, that civil society is stepping in and responding to this crisis. And of course, like in other parts of the world, the state in Turkey took measures to respond to this crisis. Health measures, but also support to respond to the slowdown of economic activities. No? However, again, like across the world, what is happening in Turkey is that the support that is being provided is not always sufficient to address the needs of disadvantaged groups. No? And who are these disadvantaged groups? It is, yes, it is undocumented migrants, it is refugees, but it is people in informal sector that are refugees or non-refugees, host community. As we know, Turkey's 40% of the economy is informal economy in Turkey. So it is not only the refugees, but refugees and others are working in informal economy in Turkey. And all these and refugees, in people in informal economy, undocumented migrants are affected by this crisis. So what is the civil society doing? Civil society is mobilized in many critical and collaborative ways, and I would say innovative ways to adapt to these new challenges and address new challenges, and trying to mitigate the economic, social, and health impact of the pandemic. I think Rukmina has already talked a lot about what the civil society has been doing, in Turkey. But if I want to classify it, and I saw it, as I said, I include refugee-led organizations. They have stepped in, for example, the Afghan doctors, the Syrian doctors, the African doctors that are living in Turkey stepped in together with the civil society on the preventive health. They organized internet sessions, and they organized education sessions on hygiene and sanitation and preventive measures on COVID-19. They have been providing basic needs to refugees and host communities. This included cash transfers. This included in-kind assistance, distant education programs. I think, Başak, you have mentioned also already İGAM and what İGAM is doing in supportive education. Many organizations like İGAM have mobilized volunteers across the country to support distant learning of Syrian refugees, Afghan refugees, etc. And others, other disadvantaged, low-income people in Turkey. And they have been distributing the regulations that are coming from the Ministry of Health, from Ministry of Education. There are they are translating of these regulations into Arabic, into Persian, so that people can have access through internet. We see an increased volunteerism, that the number of volunteers that are working with civil society, but also working with municipalities have increased. And municipalities have managed to mobilize people to support the people that are disadvantaged, mobilize food banks. And Citizens Solidarity Network has been established to connect people in need with the services that are state services or other services. Women's organizations, Syrian organizations, and Turkish organizations has stepped in to address increased violence against women and work together with the government to make sure that women knows that even in the lockdown conditions, they can go to the police. Even in the lockdown, under lockdown conditions, they can go to shelters and find refuge in other places if they are victims of violence. No? So there are many, many things that are happening. But
if you can
wrap
up, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are many things happening, but there are many learnings that are happening as well, especially policy and development approaches. No? What we are learning is, yes, we are stepping in, we are really trying to bend to provide an aid band, if you like. But what is becoming very obvious in Turkey and across the world, that for us as NGOs, but also for donors, and since EU here, I will say the EU as well, but not only EU, UN and everyone, we need to take a wider view on the current political and economic systems globally and nationally that produces and sustains inequality. And the inequality includes the racism, includes gender inequality, includes inequality towards disadvantaged groups like refugees. And we need to find policies which need to come together and brainstorm to tackle inequalities heads on between the state and between the states. And without this, we are not going to be able to bend all this pain and to come out of this crisis better, no? And also what is coming true is from the consultation with civil society, but with also with the refugees, but also low-income people and so on. Aid is good, but aid is not sufficient. We need to do more than aid. We need to think other things. We need to think, for example, fair trade, no? We need to concentrate on fair trade. For example, if EU and Turkey is talking about refugee response and international responsibilities sharing, of course, EU providing funding is good. But we know it doesn't, with that money, and even with the more money, the needs are not going to be met. We need something else. As Tineke said also, no? And that something else include many things. One of them is fair trade. One of them may be thinking big, putting carbon taxes so that it can be given to countries that, like Turkey and developing countries. One of it is fair taxing. The another thing is thinking all together with civil society, with the government, with donors about economy of nurturing, no? About economy of care, no? Where we are inclusive of all the low-income people, refugees, and disadvantaged groups. And we need an economy that puts women at the center of development. That's it for now.
Yeah, Madam, I couldn't have agreed more with all the points that you raised, especially with the last one, particularly. I think we really need to put tackling inequalities at the core of all our thinking, and trying to think about it, what you have said as well, aid or the money or the financial issues have always been at the corner or at the core of the discussion, but we have to think beyond that, because we have to think that it's not the money itself, but the impact and how you can basically create that kind of livelihood without the need for the refugee to be relying on the financial aid. And we have to think a bit more complex, more complicated, and much deeper in that. Thank you for raising that point. I'm sure that there will be questions coming and we can go back to that issue again. So now we're going to our next speaker, Mrs. Noha Boğa from the Embark project. Noha is the program director of the Embark project. She has worked in various livelihoods and refugee youth empowerment projects since 2013. Embark is a unique initiative founded in 2018, and its activities are implemented under the Gelecek Daha Net, Future is Brighter youth platform. The project connects talented young refugees, migrants, and host community youth with high-level business leaders through reverse mentorship. So it's quite interesting. The project also offers employability enhancement boot camps, social entrepreneurship programs, and skill development training to further support economic inclusion, growth, and social cohesion in Turkey. And there's one more thing about Noha that I have to mention, because she's an alumni of ours. She's a METU II graduate, and she used to be one of my students. And it's very nice now to have Noha here as a speaker. So the floor is yours, Noha.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all the organizers and all the panelists. I think we heard some important key insights already. I just don't want to repeat, but today the world's forcibly displaced population is a record high number. And among them, we talk about more than 3.5 million Syrians living in Turkey. When we mention this number, we often forget that the diverse migrants crossing the borders bring with them also extensive knowledge and experience, which represents a remarkable new talent pool for local businesses to tap into. And I think Rukmini has mentioned that. I will go through this very briefly. They face legal, cultural barriers to join the workforce, and also widespread discrimination from potential employers. This is exactly where Embark comes in. It's about creating a change in perception by helping people to build meaningful connections together so that we can really have a more fair and inclusive society. Very briefly, the concept of Embark actually emerged from an international initiative that brings top talent from different industries, where they together try to find solutions to some of the global crises. And in 2017, they were discussing the Syrian youth empowerment and inclusion in Turkish society. And among them, there was a high-level team from Unilever Turkey. And under the feature of Futures Brighter Youth platform, a civil society organization in Turkey, we turned this idea, very draft idea, to the Embark project. So the project started with offering a reverse mentoring opportunity to connect senior leaders with talented refugee youth in Turkey. And the program is designed to support participants to make valuable connections, to increase their employability, boost their self-confidence, because we're giving them the role of a mentor, and learn new soft skills and develop, of course, career plans and receive support for their personal growth. So overall, the project really aims to shift this needy group with no contribution perception of the refugees to a value-adding one. And since 2018, Embark program has connected more than 100 talented Syrian and other migrant youth with 100 business leaders in Turkey, and also this year from Europe through its reverse mentorship activity. And as Professor Başak has mentioned, we have also additional activities such as the Goals for Good program to support goal setting. It's like a seminar series for youth in line with the Sustainable Development Agenda, Social Entrepreneurship Bootcamp, and most importantly, social cohesion meetings that we hold with our alumni and the new participants together. The outcomes of the program and the feedback that we receive from the participants actually assures us the value of social connections to challenge biases and misperceptions. And this impact was also recognized by the first Paris Peace Forum, EBRD's annual meeting, and many local and international platforms. While today reverse mentorship is still our core activity, within that, as I mentioned, we pair business executives with talented young mentors to engage on various topics. So it's an opportunity to meet on an equal footing, to gain insights and also cover some of the gaps in generations, cultures, and also gender. In terms of technicality, both mentors and mentees follow a similar application process, and there is a strict interview upon the application. We look for language, motivation, and also education status in mentors. And normally we implement this activity face-to-face as of 4 to 5 sessions within 3 months. But COVID-19 happened. I think it was a call around the world to empathize more with others, to understand each other, but also it created some diversities, even more divisions in certain societies. And this is how we see Embark actually coming in, because as of March 2020, we had to quickly adapt to this new world and implement all of our activities online. And today I'm actually very happy to share this experience, because the last 2 cohorts that we implemented online actually received 5 times more applications from the business leaders and the youth than before. And the sessions implemented in terms of reverse mentoring more smoothly. And we learned that there's much more to do to prepare youth to offer network, connect with businesses, and also support their employability also during this financial unstable time. So I think the online implementation also made it accessible for youth and also business leaders join across Turkey, and as I mentioned, also from Europe. So currently we are at the planning stage of a new cohort, which will begin in 2021. And it will be actually wonderful to have more companies joining from different sectors and to see more leaders as individuals who are encouraged to embrace diversity, inclusion, and social cohesion in our world. With that, I would like to close. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noha. Thank you for talking about the project. It's quite interesting because this is something that we would like to see more, the private companies being involved and the private sector being involved in refugee protection. I think that's the way to go, and that's why the Global Compact for Refugees was also calling for this action to be more responsibility and not to wait everything from the states, but also take the responsibility, the private sector. And I think this is an excellent kind of example of how it could be done. And it's quite interesting, and I'm sure that there will be more questions coming up and asking you how it is done in a more detail where we can listen to more. Thank you for sharing. So our next speaker, last but not the least, is Ravdanur Cuma. Ravdanur was born in Idlib in Syria in 1995. And they left Syria and came to Turkey to Untitled refugee camp when she was only 14. She became an advocate and activist fighting for the right of education and preventing early marriages, especially among refugees and displaced people in Syria, but also within the refugee camps in Turkey. Tried to have the vision to expand it to Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, Yemen, and Palestine. She was quite an entrepreneur and also leadership skills, as I can see. That at the age of 15, she started printing her first magazine, and then she studied international relations in Turkey. And then afterwards, she set up her own foundation, the Ravdanur Foundation. It has the main focus of foundations to refugees and displaced people, especially women and young girls, to have education, fighting for the right of education, prevention of early marriages, encouraging young children and their families to support young children's education. And she also speaks on behalf of the young refugees in many conferences, including a special session of the world leaders at the World Humanitarian Summit in 2015, and many TV programs and many universities, and now she's with us. Thank you for joining us, Ravdanur. And also, I visited the Untitled refugee camp. I think it was in 2015. It made me wonder if actually you were there. I visited schools and a daycare center there. And I have to tell you that the daycare center was much, much nicer than which my daughter was going in Ankara. So I was very impressed by the setting up of Untitled camp. So thank you for being with us and looking forward to hearing your perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much, Başak Hoca. Actually, I love Entrepreneur Camp because I see it was my new country for the new life. And I started everything from that camp. In 2015, I wasn't in the camp, I was attending the university. But I'm happy to hear that you visited that camp. Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank everyone here. I'm really lucky to be with you today. Actually, I would like to thank Meryem Hanım because she mentioned many problems that we are facing, and I don't want to repeat them, but I would like to mention that Turkey is hosting 3.6 million of refugees, which is the hugest number in the world of refugees. Actually, the refugees, they are victims. We all know that they are victims, and because of the COVID-19, they became a second double victim, or the second time as a victim. I would like to mention that yes, we are really appreciated for all the support and the fund and the EU and the government, Turkey, for supporting us and trying to help us. But actually, I would like to say that it's not enough, because in COVID-19, the violence, we see that it's increased, and at the same time, the refugees, they don't have the access to services like before. Actually, I would like to say that the priority has been changed. Before, it was really important to work on child marriages because I worked on that too much. Education, now, yes, but I don't see that the people is giving these problems important like before, but it's increasing now. And the people, they have economic problems, education problems, child marriages is continuing. I want to say that education problem, we all know that the Syrians, their system changed, and now they are attending Turkish schools, and their language, it wasn't enough to have that system. Now we have programs like İGAM, a volunteers program, supporting those students to develop their in Turkish. But I also would like to say that it's really important to continue on those programs, because it's really important for the children. Actually, like also the refugees, they have problem with the materials, because the education now all in online and need materials, iPad, laptop, internet connection, and the economic problems is really bad, because the business stopped and all people start to stay at home, and their business and jobs had to stop. Also, I would like to say, as a refugee and refugee-led organization, that psycho support is really important now, because now NGOs, it's not able to reach families like before, and everything is online, and that is not enough. Also, I want to say that we have more priorities, like preventing child marriage, awareness raising, and supporting education now, and we have to work more. I would like to say also that the EU and Turkey should really support the local NGOs and giving them space to reach those families one by one, because it's really important to reach those families, because we see that the violence and child marriage is increasing nowadays. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avdanur, for pointing out also what the refugee community is going through and reflecting on that, because this is something that we don't usually hear very much. We talk about Syrian refugees and we talk about the needs, etc. But sometimes the voice is going from the second-hand information. So it was very good to have you here, that you can raise out the concern or the first-hand information being given to us You're absolutely right. The business has stopped, and education is an issue for Turkish families and the host community as well. And it's it can only be possible that the refugee community is also affecting quite drastically with this online teaching, etc. So thank you for mentioning that. I'm sure that we will discuss a bit further. There are a couple of questions that already arrived, and I will try to group them together under in certain topics. The first question will come to Libor, and the question will be about the EU. So the question is that, and they would like to hear your opinion about the new EU Migration Policy Pact and how it will affect refugees in Turkey, because according to the pact, it seems that Turkey will be at a disadvantaged group despite hosting so many refugees. And if there are any other speaker who would like to comment on this issue, please also speak up. And the floor is yours, Libor.
Thank you. So I am not quite a policy person here because I'm a practitioner. We are, as you know, we are implementing the facility on the ground in Turkey. But I can share my opinion that, of course, we are pleased to see that the Commission has adopted a proposal of what I think is an ambitious pact on migration and asylum that is very comprehensive and is an attempt at this stage to put in place, let's say, or create a basis for a unified asylum and immigration policy in Europe is something that has been on the table for many decades, and that for a number of reasons has not materialized yet. But I think it would be important for EU to advance in this area. We should learn from the lessons of the past and advance in this area so that we can be indeed a credible counterpart also to third countries, including Turkey, in the discussion on migration. To what extent, whether there are any particular advantages that the refugees that are already in Turkey nowadays can derive from this, I am not sure, because it's of course oriented for the future. These procedures that are foreseen shall be applicable for the newly arriving immigrants or asylum seekers. However, there are some important principles that for those of you that have studied the proposal that are underpinning this concept of shared solidarity among the EU member states in this important subject area. So I would say from my perspective, and this is not an official opinion of anyone but of Libor, is that this is an ambitious initiative, and I am curious to see whether it will eventually be adopted, approved by the Council and the European Parliament and become the European policy indeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Libor. Thank you. It will be quite interesting. I think for anyone who's working on the EU or in migration-related issues, very closely watching what's going to happen next. It looks to me that as an academic, from a very academic point of view, if I put my academic hat on, I realize it's a very rational kind of documentation, and it will be interesting to see how it's going to stand, whether we're going to be seeing more in detail about a positive kind of outcome coming up. I don't know if Laura would like to join in and maybe show a little bit more of the Brussels perspective from the European Parliament point of view. Laura, you're more than welcome to join anytime to also contribute to this discussion. Is there anybody else in the panel who would like to comment on this particular subject? And if not, I will. Laura is with us. Okay, hi Laura. Would you like to comment? Can you unmute yourself? And could you please comment on this new pact, whether or not how it's going to impact future, you think, in terms of Turkey or refugees? Is it too rational as I see it? A bit too rational?
Well, we actually had a webinar not that long ago with a series of experts to explore this question mainly to, in a way, try to understand the different components of the new Pact on Migration and Asylum, but as well to discuss what would be the impact on the EU-Turkey statement. The connections are not very clear because, of course, the migration deal, the new Pact on Migration and Asylum has to do with the EU's policy with regards to migration and asylum, but of course it has a very strong external component, which could be, in a way, can send a message of where the EU is heading with regards to migration management. So we see how many of these deals with third countries, like the case of Turkey, are gonna continue being the norm. And it has been mentioned as well by Mrs. Strick earlier on that now the EU is in the process of renegotiating or reviewing the implementation of the EU-Turkey statement and seeing what has worked effectively and what has not. And here, I think this would also give us more of an indication of where EU-Turkey cooperation on migration will go in the next years to come. So it's we still have to see, because it's a very ambitious package of legislative proposals that the European Commission has come forward with, that it was very difficult to find a consensus within the different member states of the European Union. And we have to see what will be the political will from those member states. But we will also be seeing a lot of discussions in the European Parliament and at the Council when the time comes about how to effectively implement those new components of the migration and asylum. But I would say, and this is my personal opinion, that unfortunately we haven't seen much of a change when it comes from the political will of member states to reactivate their solidarity, or like Mrs. Strick was saying, to be more engaging when it comes to receiving refugees and migrants. So even if we can no longer talk about a crisis of numbers, because I refrain from calling it a refugee crisis, but a crisis of numbers that Europe faced back in 2015, I think 5 years later, we see that we are politically not ready to maybe confront such another wave like that. So while the pact has also been looking into the integration and inclusion aspects of migration and of migrants and refugees, I think this is something that we can also explore together with Turkey on how the big number of refugees that Turkey is hosting at the moment could be better integrated or harmonized into the Turkish society. So I believe that it's too early to say, but in the years to come or in the months to come, we will see more cooperation with Turkey in this regard, so it can be seen as a positive step.
Thank you, Laura. And I noticed that I haven't actually introduced you, or nobody else has been introduced you. So very briefly, Laura Batalla has worked in the European Parliament for nearly a decade, advising the members on a wide range of policies. Also, she has established her own initiatives like the EU-Turkey Forum, which is one of the now that it's like a rarities nowadays. We're still trying to push for the discussion in the EU about Turkey, EU-Turkey relations. It's a cross-party, non-partisan platform for high-level discussion and cooperation between Turkey and the EU, which she is the secretary since 2014. And I remember meeting with you in 2016 at that time with the Turkey-EU deal, top of the agenda, the discussions were going on and everybody was like hopeful. So thank you for the contribution regarding the pact, and let's see how it's going to be developed over time. And I think Meryem wanted to join in. Is that correct? Would you like to make a contribution?
Yeah, just few words. I mean, I think we see it as an important step for EU to try and manage, at least internally, to reach an agreement, because I mean that would have probably, at least within the EU bloc, will provide an environment for the countries to deal with the migration internally within EU without falling into too much politicization of the issue. No. Maybe it is can be a step, to reduce that and to look at it from really a human rights perspective in other crises. But I think, as Laura also said, I mean, we are still very worried about EU and its relationship with the third countries in terms of migration, and EU's commitment to live up to international responsibility sharing that is beyond funding third countries, no? And whether, the EU will continue to externalize and outsource its responsibility is a big issue. And it is a big issue because I think refugee movement is not gonna end anytime soon. And if not because of war, we are gonna see lots of people's movement because of the climate change, maybe because of other crises that are the world going to change. I think this pandemic is only one reminder that there are many other crises that the humanity might be facing in very near future, especially due to climate. And I think if this crisis did not remind us, this pandemic that did not remind us that yes, you can have regional policies and this is normal, but I think we need to act as a world citizenship, citizens, and as a world community, and found collective, collective solutions to our problems. I don't know how we are gonna be facing the future, with only regional or national policies, no? I mean, I think in this pandemic, we see many directions, no? We see that nationalism and polarization increasing, but at the same time, we see collaboration increasing, no? And
Mariam, sorry to interrupt because questions are coming, and maybe one of the questions that are related to the civil society role. Maybe Rukmina can answer to this question. So the question is that how can NGOs and civil society organizations are reaching out to the refugees work in formal market and economy? And is there any effort to the formal market? Did you see anything that is related to that in your report? And maybe Nuha, you can also answer to this question. Unfortunately, we lost Ravdunur. She's joining and coming in and out. I mean, if I can find her, I'll ask her question as well. But Nuha, maybe you can a little bit elaborate about how, in terms of the business leaders, what's the impact of Embark on business leaders who joined as mentees? Maybe you can mention a little bit on that. And is there signals of change of trends, seeing that could be an opportunity to Embark in the future with this changing pandemic trends that Mariam was talking about? Do you see any kind of prospect in the future? So Rukmina first, and then Nuha, you next, please.
Sure. Thank you for the question. One of the things we noticed in our research was, through our conversations with ILO, we learned about the transition to formality program. So one of the biggest inhibitors for formal, for employers in the formal labor market is the various sort of bureaucratic, as well as the bureaucratic processes for hiring Syrian refugees, as well as this requirement, the expenses associated with that. So they have to pay them a certain minimum wage, which I think at that time was 2,943 Turkish lira, which was approximately $429. These were some of the factors that were sort of inhibiting formal sector employers from hiring refugees. So the ILO started the workplace, sort of collaborated with Turkey's social security institution to implement the workplace, the transition to formality program, which gave financial assistance to these employers and gave them an incentive to hire Syrian refugees into the formal sector and provided them with the initial assistance that they would need to do their paperwork, to give them the minimum wage. And then the idea was that they would be these expenses would be covered for the first 6 months, and then gradually they would be able to sort of be absorbed into the workforce. So that was one of the initiatives that we learned about through our research that was initiated by the International Labour Organization.
Okay. Thank you, Rukmini. Maybe Nuha, you can comment on it, and we'll have the final comments. And unfortunately, we reached our time limit, and we'll be closing soon. Nuha, can you hear me?
I have this message. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. And we can see you fine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think my internet connection is...
Okay.
Okay, I think my internet connection is very bad.
But we can hear you. You can talk and we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So for the first question, I think the impact on mentees is a couple, because the mentees who join this program, I think there is an important impact on the change of perspectives. That's one thing. They don't always know even what refugee is, who's living in Turkey. You know, when they join the program, we ask them, what do you think about Syrian youth living in Turkey or other migrant youth? And you should see the answers and how drastically they change at the end of the mentorship journey. But also there is an important fact, the reverse mentorship in its nature, it's actually composed of certain topics. So the list of topic goes such as, for instance, now the COVID-19's impact on classical transition to career automation. So there has been mentees like the CEO of former Unilever Turkey office who learned how to code from his mentors. So this kind of insights are really important because they are learning, and there are so many new things happening in technology and new trends. That's one thing. And as Mariam Hanım also mentioned, there's so much divisions and also collaborations going on. I think this is going to be my second question answer. It will be very important for Embark to continue to implement its activities as innovative as now, so online, and to attract more businesses and also more youth from different regions in Turkey, but also, as I said, from Europe, because this was very interesting this year. We did not open applications to Europe, but there were business leaders, like Turkish leaders living in Europe, and who wanted to take part. So we said, why not? This is going to be the first trial. I would love to report how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. On this,
there's one thing there in the formalization of labor. No?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question, part of it is formalization of the labor. No, but I think there are bigger questions on employment creation. We have to really think of the future economy when we are talking about refugees or low income or unemployment and employment creation. I think with this pandemic, what we have seen that the things that we expected to happen 10 years later, digitalization, for example, has started to happen fast track. And in Europe and in Turkey and across the world, there are gonna be a loss of unemployment. There is gonna be reskilling, need to reskill the refugees and the national population, no? And I think we cannot act as if nothing has happened in the world, no? We have to think about the future economy. We have to think about how the most disadvantaged people, whether it is refugees, whether low-income people, whether the poor communities, how these populations will be integrated in the future economy, in the new economy, without violating their most basic rights, their rights to life, no? And we need to think about reskilling this population, education for this, reskilling this unskilled labor, if you like. But also we need to start to think about other social protection measures, like universal basic income. No, and I think we need to start to think big, and we need to start to digest that thinking and start to put that big thinking into implementation bits by bits. No, the a lot has happened, and we don't even come close to understand the impact of this COVID-19 as yet. And we need to pull all our resources to understand that and to find innovative ways of protection and employment.
Thank you, Mariam. And maybe the last words from Rukmini and Libor, and we will be closing the session, this panel, because we passed beyond our time, but it was a very interesting discussion and people were still watching. So that's why we continued a little bit further than our planned time. So can I have the last words then, Rukmini first, Libor next, and maybe we can close. If Rabdanur joins us, we will have the last word from Rabdanur as well. Yes, Rukmini.
Yeah, thanks. Indeed, as I said, under the facility, we have been working mainly with international financial institutions and Turkish institutions for obvious reasons, but it's important to connect every now and then and maintain this meaningful dialogue with civil society and legitimate interest groups. Contact with the reality has become more difficult in these challenging times because of all the restrictions in place. Wherever everyone is based, there is some hope. We are all with a lot of hopeful excitement, I would say, watching the news about the vaccines being developed and rolled out in different parts of the world, but we are not quite there yet. And the economic hardship will continue for some time, even when the pandemic comes to an end. So it will be important that we deliver on the ambitious targets, speaking for us under the facility for refugees in Turkey, and can demonstrate real impact on the people that are the most vulnerable and most affected by the current situation. So this is our priority for the upcoming period. Thank you for organizing this, for putting this platform for discussion on the internet and organizing the session today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Libor. METUMIR, I'll give the floor, but I'll give the last word to Rukmini and then you, and then we'll be closing. Yes, Rukmini, please.
Thank you so much for, again, for inviting us and for co-hosting this panel with us. As the pandemic has demonstrated, like we're all, you know, we're in the same ocean, but we're certainly not all in the same boat. So I think this is an opportunity for us to all come together and really listen to what the needs of the most vulnerable and at-risk communities are, and then communicate and listen actively and respond accordingly. So this is a unique moment for civil society to really get together and respond to the needs of the most vulnerable communities. So I hope that this conversation has added a little bit of food for thought for the entire international community. Thanks again.
Rukmini, thank you so much. As a believer of the European integration project, I always think that crisis will always bring opportunities. And I'm hoping that this pandemic will be creating more opportunities for the NGOs to come together, to work together, the civil society, the state actors, international actors, as well as the private sector joining in, as we have seen from the Embark project, and also bringing the refugee voice, although we lost the refugee voice, unfortunately, Rabdanur, but you're with us in spirit here right now. And I have to thank you again once more, like speaking up and being part of the panel. And I'm leaving now the floor. Thank you for joining all the listeners and who were here with us virtually, which gives us the opportunity to reach transatlantic from Washington, D.C. to Brussels, to Turkey, to Ankara. And at the same time, it was a special day, the Human Rights Day, plus the European Council Summit, and hoping the decisions are going to be very positive for Turkey relations. I'm hoping that this is going to be building bridges, not destroying bridges for the Turkey relations, and leaving the floor to Metin Bey, the president of İGAM. And I would like to thank you all for joining in this joint panel of HasNa, Migration Research at METU, İGAM, and at the same time, EU-Turkey Forum. Laura, would you like to join in as well? And I'm leaving the floor to you, Metin Bey.
Thank you very much, Başak Hocam. It was a very great discussion with these very distinguished speakers. I hope what the messages out of this meeting will be heard somewhere, some important circles who might support refugees and host communities, not only in Turkey, but all area, the region hosting refugee populations. I'd like to say a last word, a hope I would like to express that during this COVID crisis, many things happened, but one unfortunate thing was that refugee populations, a huge population, was forgotten. Maybe it is because of our natural instinct. The threat was directing all of us, so we forgot refugees, which means that both the governmental or municipality assistance didn't go to refugees. We try to approach those institutions to get some assistance, to get more hygiene material. They said we got the answers that no, our program doesn't include refugees. Now we are entering a period of vaccination, and I hear that those who are above 65 will be also on the front line. I wish and I hope that the refugees which meets this criteria should not be excluded this time. So many thanks, Başak Hocam, for your moderation, facilitation, and thank you very much to all participants.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone. Thank you. Thank you.